The moment my father looked me straight in the eye and told me I was not his real daughter, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. 26 years of memories suddenly felt like lies. Growing up, I had spent countless weekends at my grandmother Patricia's beautiful estate in Connecticut, believing I belonged there. Her warm hugs, homemade apple pie, and promises about my future inheritance seemed so real. But now, standing in his sterile office, Jonathan was claiming it was all built on deception. $2 million hung in the balance, along with everything I thought I knew about myself. Before I tell you how this family secret unraveled everything, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You will not believe what happened when I decided to fight back. I am Elena, and my story begins with the most beautiful childhood memories anyone could ask for. From the time I was 6 years old until I turned 18 every weekend, and summer vacation was spent at my grandmother Patricia Wellington's estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. She was a widow who had built quite a fortune through smart investments after my grandfather passed away when I was just a baby. The Wellington estate was like something out of a fairy tale. 14 rooms sprawled across the property with a rose garden that covered 3 acres, and a piano room featuring a gorgeous Steinway grand piano. I learned to play on that piano starting with simple melodies when I was 7, and eventually mastering complex pieces by the time I was 16. Grandma Patricia would sit in her favorite velvet armchair clapping softly whenever I finished a song. But music was just one part of our special bond. She taught me everything about gardening, showing me how to prune the roses just right, and which vegetables grew best in New England soil. We would spend hours in her kitchen preparing traditional recipes that had been passed down through generations. Her clam chowder was legendary among the neighbors, and she made sure I knew every ingredient by heart. What made our relationship truly special was how she treated me like an adult from an early age. When I turned 16, she gave me my first credit card and opened a checking account in my name. She would sit me down in her study surrounded by financial documents and investment portfolios, teaching me about money management and business decisions. Those conversations always included discussions about my future. She would ask about my college plans, my career goals, and my dreams. I remember one particular autumn afternoon when I was 17 sitting by the fireplace as she told me about the family history and the responsibilities that came with the Wellington name. Grandma Patricia always called me the apple of her eye and her precious granddaughter. She would stroke my hair and promise that the family estate would someday be passed down to my children. Those words filled me with such warmth and security. I felt unconditionally loved in a way that I honestly did not experience at home with my father. Jonathan Wallace. My father was 52 years old and worked as a real estate developer in Hartford. While he provided for our family financially, there was always something distant about his behavior toward me. This became especially noticeable whenever I spent extended time at Grandma Patricia's house. He would make strange comments like, "Do not get too attached to that place," or, "Nothing lasts forever, Elena." At the time, I assumed he was jealous because Grandma Patricia was significantly wealthier than our family. We lived comfortably in a nice suburban home, but it was nothing compared to the Wellington estate. The distance between my father and me became even more pronounced after my mother Sarah passed away when I was 15. She had battled cancer for 2 long years, and losing her was devastating for both of us. However, instead of bringing us closer together during our grief, my father seemed to pull away even more. That is when I started spending even more time with Grandma Patricia, who became my source of comfort and stability. During my senior year of high school and throughout college, our weekend traditions continued. She was there for every important milestone from graduation to my first job at a marketing firm in New Haven. She celebrated my achievements and encouraged me through challenges with the kind of unwavering support that I had come to depend on. When Grandma Patricia was 83, she was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. The doctors said the progression would be slow, but I knew I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible while she was still herself. Without hesitation, I quit my job at the marketing firm and moved into the estate to become her full-time caregiver. Those 6 months were both heartbreaking and beautiful. Even as her memory began to fade in small ways, she always recognized me clearly. She would hold my hand during her confused moments and tell me stories about my mother's childhood. Sometimes she would repeat the same stories multiple times in one day, but I never minded. Her love for me remained constant and strong. During one of our last meaningful conversations, she took my hands in hers and looked directly into my eyes. Her voice was clear and determined as she said, "Everything goes to you, sweetheart. You are my only true family." Those words gave me such peace, knowing that our bond was real and that she trusted me with her legacy. Grandma Patricia passed away peacefully on a quiet autumn morning with me holding her hand. The funeral was small but dignified, attended by neighbors, her few remaining friends, and some distant relatives I had never met. My father handled most of the arrangements, which I appreciated since I was still processing my grief. 3 weeks after the funeral, my father called me with a request that seemed routine at the time. "Elena, we need to talk about your grandmother's will," he said over the phone. "Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? We need to discuss the inheritance details." I was actually excited about this meeting. I assumed we would go over the financial aspects of what Grandma Patricia had left me, perhaps discuss how to handle the estate and investments. I drove to his office in downtown Hartford, feeling grateful that he was helping me navigate this complex process. His office building was one of those modern structures with lots of glass and steel. The atmosphere felt cold and sterile compared to the warm, homey environment I was used to at the estate. When I arrived, his secretary, Mrs. Henderson, seemed uncomfortable and avoided making eye contact with me. That should have been my first warning sign. My father closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit in the chair across from his desk. His expression was more serious than I had ever seen it, and there was something different about his demeanor that made my stomach feel uneasy. "Elena, there is something I should have told you years ago." He began, his voice steady but cold. My heart started beating faster because nothing good ever starts with those words. "Your grandmother left everything to you in her will, but there is a problem." He paused, looking down at some papers on his desk before meeting my eyes again. "You are not actually my biological daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. The room seemed to spin around me, and I felt nauseous as I tried to process what he had just said. This could not be happening. This could not be real. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out what appeared to be official-looking documents. "I have been keeping this secret for your entire life," he continued. "Your mother Sarah had an affair when she was pregnant with you. You are not my blood." I stared at the papers he was showing me, but the words were blurring together. My hands were shaking as childhood memories flashed through my mind. All those times he seemed distant, all those strange comments about not getting too attached to Grandma Patricia's house, all those moments when I felt like something was missing in our relationship suddenly started to make a horrible kind of sense. "Why now?" I managed to whisper. "Why are you telling me this now after all these years?" His answer was delivered with a matter-of-fact tone that chilled me to the bone. "I could not hurt Mother while she was alive. She loved you, and I did not want to destroy that relationship. But now that she is gone, the truth has to come out." I felt my world crumbling around me. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about my place in the world was being stripped away. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Only blood relatives deserve the family fortune." That is what Mother always believed, even if she was too kind-hearted to say it out loud. The cruel certainty in his voice sparked something inside me. I looked up at him through my tears and asked, "So you are cutting me out completely, just like that?" He nodded without hesitation. "The estate should go to actual blood relatives. It is the right thing to do." That is when I made a decision that would change everything. I wiped my eyes and looked at him with as much composure as I could manage. "Do you promise to keep your word about this blood relative rule?" I asked. He seemed surprised by my question, but answered confidently, "Absolutely. Only blood deserves the Wellington fortune. I give you my word on that." Something clicked inside my brain at that moment. If he wanted to play games about bloodlines and family connections, I was going to make sure he followed his own rules completely. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Then yes, I agree to that rule completely." My father seemed satisfied with my response, probably thinking I was accepting defeat. But as I drove home that day, my mind was racing with possibilities. Something about his whole presentation felt wrong. The timing, the documents, the way he seemed so prepared for this conversation, all raised red flags in my mind. I spent that evening going through old family photos and documents looking for anything that might contradict his story. I remembered how my mother Sarah had always been faithful and devoted to our family. The idea of her having an affair seemed completely out of character, but I had been too shocked to challenge him in the moment. That night, I made a plan. If blood relatives were the only ones who deserved the Wellington fortune according to my father, then I was going to find out exactly whose blood was running through my veins. And if he was lying about my parentage to steal my inheritance, I was going to prove it. The next morning I contacted Gene Tech Labs, a genetic testing company I found online. I explained that I needed a paternity test and asked about their most accurate and comprehensive options. The representative told me they could provide results with 99.9% accuracy within 2 weeks if I could provide DNA samples from both potential parents. Getting my own DNA sample was easy, but I needed to be clever about obtaining my father's DNA without his knowledge. I arranged to meet him for lunch at a restaurant downtown, claiming I wanted to discuss my plans for moving out of the estate. During our meal, I made sure he drank coffee from a ceramic mug that would retain his saliva. When he excused himself to take a phone call, I quickly wrapped the mug in napkins and placed it in my purse. While waiting for the test results, I decided to hire a private investigator to dig deeper into my family's history. I found David Martinez through online reviews. He had 20 years of experience in family investigations and seemed trustworthy during our initial phone consultation. I paid David $3,000 from my savings account to conduct a comprehensive background check on my father's activities during the time I was conceived. If there was any truth to his claims about my mother having an affair, I wanted to know every detail. The waiting period was agonizing. Every day felt like a week as I wondered if everything I believed about myself was about to change forever. But I was determined to uncover the truth, whatever it might be. David's first report arrived 10 days later, and what he found was shocking, but not in the way I expected. He had discovered that my father Jonathan had his own secret relationship 27 years ago with a woman named Linda Chambers. Linda had been a waitress at an upscale restaurant in New Haven, and their relationship lasted 8 months, occurring during the exact time period when my mother was pregnant with me. Even more surprising, Linda had given birth to a son named Marcus just 6 months after I was born. David's investigation revealed that my father had been secretly supporting Marcus financially for his entire life. Monthly checks had been sent through a trust fund arrangement first to Linda, and then directly to Marcus after Linda died in a car accident when Marcus was 12 years old. This information painted a completely different picture than the story my father had told me. Instead of my mother being unfaithful, it appeared that he was the one who had been living a double life. But I needed more concrete evidence before confronting him. I asked David to help me locate Marcus, who was now 25 years old and working construction in Boston. After some research, we found him working on a high-rise project in the downtown area. Meeting Marcus was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I drove to Boston on a Saturday morning and waited near the construction site until I saw a young man who looked remarkably similar to my father. When I approached him and explained who I was, his reaction confirmed my suspicions. "You are Jonathan Wallace's official daughter," he said, looking uncomfortable. "He told me about you but said I could never contact you or your family because it would complicate things." Marcus went on to explain that my father had always been honest with him about being his biological son, but had also made it clear that Marcus could never inherit anything because he was illegitimate. "Mr. Wallace promised to take care of me financially my whole life instead," Marcus said. "He told me that was the best he could do given the circumstances." As we talked, I realized that Marcus was actually a decent person who had been manipulated just as much as I had. He showed me photos from his childhood that clearly demonstrated his relationship with my father. The family resemblance was undeniable. The DNA test results arrived 2 days later, and they confirmed what I had begun to suspect. I was indeed Jonathan's biological daughter with 99.9% certainty. My father had been lying about my parentage in order to steal my inheritance, but I was not finished investigating. I ordered a second DNA test using a sample I obtained from Marcus during our meeting. Those results confirmed that Marcus was also Jonathan's biological son. Now I understood my father's entire scheme. He had planned to lie about my parentage to invalidate my claim to the inheritance, then present Marcus as the rightful blood relative who should receive the estate. This would allow him to control the Wellington fortune through Marcus, while eliminating me completely from the picture. I contacted the family lawyer William Morrison, who had handled my grandmother's estate planning. I scheduled a meeting and requested that my father be present to discuss some important matters regarding the will. I spent the days before the meeting carefully preparing my evidence. I had DNA test results, financial records showing my father's payments to Marcus, and documentation of his secret relationship with Linda Chambers. Everything was organized in a manila folder that would expose his lies completely. The meeting took place at Morrison & Associates Law Office in downtown Hartford on a Tuesday morning. I arrived early and waited in the conference room, my manila folder of evidence sitting calmly on the table in front of me. When my father walked in, he was not alone. To my surprise, Marcus was with him. My father introduced Marcus to the lawyer as my real son who deserves the inheritance that was wrongfully left to Elena. William Morrison looked confused by this unexpected turn of events, but my father seemed confident and in control. He began explaining his version of events, repeating the same lies about my mother's supposed affair and my illegitimate birth. I let him finish his entire presentation before asking if I could respond. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady as I placed the DNA test results on the table in front of everyone. "Dad, you said only blood relatives deserve the family fortune, right?" I asked, looking directly into his eyes. He nodded confidently, probably thinking he was about to win this battle. "Absolutely. That has always been the principle." "Well, I have good news for you," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "I am your blood relative. This DNA test proves that I am your biological daughter with 99.9% certainty." The color drained from his face as he stared at the official laboratory documents. But I was not finished. "However, you are absolutely right about blood relatives deserving inheritance," I said, placing the second set of DNA results on the table. "Marcus is also your blood relative. He is your son from your affair with Linda Chambers 27 years ago." Complete silence filled the room. Marcus looked shocked, not because he did not know Jonathan was his father, but because he was learning for the first time that I was his half-sister, and that our father had been lying to both of us. William Morrison examined both DNA test results carefully before speaking. "Mr. Wallace, these documents appear to be legitimate. If both Elena and Marcus are your biological children, then according to your own stated principle about blood relatives, they would both have equal claims to any inheritance disputes." My father's entire scheme had collapsed in a matter of minutes. He sat in stunned silence as I explained how I had uncovered his financial support of Marcus and documented his relationship with Linda. Every lie he had told was exposed, and his manipulation of both his children was laid bare. In the end, I received the full inheritance that my grandmother Patricia had intended for me. But I chose to share a portion with Marcus, who was an innocent victim in our father's deception. He had not asked to be born into this complicated situation, and he deserved to benefit from the family connection he had never been allowed to acknowledge. My father lost the respect of both his children that day. While forgiveness might be possible in the future, trust would have to be earned through actions rather than words. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that family is not always about blood relationships. It is about love, integrity, and the bonds we choose to honor. My grandmother Patricia loved me unconditionally, not because of genetics, but because of who I was as a person. Today I am building a new life that honors her memory and the values she taught me. The Wellington estate has been restored and maintained as a place where real family connections can flourish. Marcus and I have developed a genuine sibling relationship based on honesty rather than manipulation. Blood may determine our genetics, but character determines our true family. In the end, that is the legacy my grandmother Patricia really left me, and it is worth far more than any monetary inheritance. What do you think about family loyalty versus blood relationships? Have you ever discovered family secrets that changed your perspective on everything you thought you knew? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges. If this story resonated with you, please share it with others who might need to hear that truth always finds a way to surface. Thank you for watching, and remember that your worth is never determined by other people's lies about who you are.